What you will see here is footage taken from the current version. So we're showing the version here, same version here, but I'm only one person, so I'm using the video. It's just the same footage. You can see. What you'll see is a pre-alpha version, so we're already pretty close to alpha. But almost all functionality is in, but it's a huge world, so we need a lot. There's a lot to polish. But we'll see. Okay. So ELEX is an open world action RPG, very much like Witcher or Fallout. The special thing about this game here is the setting. We call it science fantasy. So what we're trying to do is put both science fiction and fantasy into one game world. The world itself is post-apocalyptic, so a meteor crashed into a planet called Magellan, destroyed almost all of civilization, and now the only thing left is a really dangerous world where some survivors founded settlements, and there's a large wilderness. Everything's really dangerous out here. You can see the remains of the old world here. And with that meteor, a substance called ELEX came to the planet. And ELEX then changed everything. Because with ELEX, if you consume it, you develop magical powers. If you use it for machines, or you can use it to operate machines, you can use it for weapons, and you can also use it as a currency, or it's used as a currency here. ELEX, for example, as the currency on the planet. So really everything is about ELEX in this world, because everybody's fighting for resources, and ELEX is at the center. We rely heavily on a simulated game world, so we don't want to script. We use DI as much as possible, let's put it like that. For example, everybody's on a daily schedule. There's a lot of people running around the game world. Whenever they meet, they either, if they're friendly, they talk to each other or they fight each other. So none of this is really scripted, everything is happening with AI. The simulated world also goes so far that you can kill almost any NPC in the game world, even the quest givers, and the story will adapt to that. So that of course will then lead to multiple endings, but we really want you to play with the world and really feel like you can make a difference in this world. We've got one big game world, so once we throw you in, you will see no loading screen whatsoever. Any point on the game, on the horizon, you can actually really reach. And when I say you can reach any point in the game world, I mean that literally you just saw the jetpack, so you can really get to any point in the game world. Development-wise, that's a challenge, because usually you have a lot of areas where you don't put that much detail in, but now you have, because you can go anywhere. But it really pays off, because it really feels differently when you use the jetpack in the game world. So usually if you have a mountain, you'd have to go down, usually you go like this, and this, and this, and here, you jump. And that really changes the pace that you use for the world, but also how you see. Here we have the close combat. That's one big part of the combat system. We have a rather tactical combat, so you have quick attacks, you have heavy attacks, there's combos building up, you have special attacks, and you also have to manage your stamina at the same time. So we don't want you to just button mash, but really get a good feeling. There's a lot of interaction with the game world, so you can find a lot of stuff, or you can use a lot of objects here. It doesn't make a lot of sense to sit here, but it's nice. Exploration is, like I said, is at the core of the game. Here we are in a Messe. That's one of the 5 regions in the game. And now we're going to see the second part of the combat system, so the long-range combat. Of course, since interaction with the game world is important, you can also use the game world with the long-range weapons that you can see here. And our setting allows us to have a really broad range of weaponry here. So you have swords, sword with shield, a sword with a chainsaw attached to it, you have a grenade launcher, you have flamethrowers, you have plasma guns, you basically whatever you can think of, we have it in here. Of course, there's also full RPG in there, so full experience points, crafting, enchanting weapons, skill trees for each faction, and we also want we want to just combine the narrative with the game systems as well. So for example, if you want to level up, you have to find a teacher. The teacher will only talk to you if you have a certain standing within a faction, so you have to make quests for him. So basically, we just want it to feel as one and not just here's the game mechanics and here's the story. It should feel just like one thing. As you can see here, you can also use the jetpack just to avoid combat, but also there's going to be enemies who will have a jetpack, who can also fly, and you can also use the jetpack for attacks. So for example, you can use the jetpack, go up and just crush your enemy from the air. So we really want to have the jetpack not as a gimmick, but more integrated into the whole movement scheme. In the back you see the domed city of Messe. That city is controlled by the clerics. The clerics are one of the factions in the game. They believe that technology will save the planet. Then there's the berserkers. The berserkers think that going back to nature and using magic, that's the way to go. You've also got the outlaws. The outlaws, they don't have any rules. They just like doing drugs and having a good time. That's the third faction. And there's also the player has to join one of these three factions in the game. You can only join one of them, you can't go back. So that's really a major decision in the game. And there's a fourth faction called the Alps. They're basically the bad guys. I told you before, when you consume ELEX, then you develop all these magical powers. The downside to it is that you lose all your emotions. Here we've got a teleporter for fast travel in the game. But the Alps don't care about emotions, they just want all the power, they just want to consume as much ELEX as possible. And they squeeze the ELEX out of everything living, so they just get more ELEX. Player character is actually one of them in the beginning, but then he's betrayed by his own people, he's left somewhere to die, and once the ELEX gets out of his system, he suddenly starts to feel his emotions for the first time in his life. That's when the game starts. Here we have a settlement of the outlaws. They're not allowed to go into the city, controlled by the clerics. We also invested a lot into the AI. So the AI is different in cities than it is in the wilderness out there. So in cities, every building is owned by somebody. So if you run into private rooms, they'll say, get out of here, there's nothing for you here. If you steal something or if you murder somebody, they will see that and they will report that to the elders of the town, and then you'll be known as a murderer or a thief. You can of course buy yourself out, or you have to pay for your crimes basically. If you don't do that, there's going to be even bounty hunters after you. So, but of course, if you that's only limited to the city then, so if you do one thing wrong, it's not like you forget the complete game, but there's always ways out, but you have to do something for it again. Also, we just seen, I pull out the weapon, they react immediately saying, put that away, so we want them to react really in a believable fashion. Now we're gonna just kill them with grenade launchers, because it's a fun thing to do. Here you can see Hunter Staff will change the story. That's what I said before, that you can kill almost any gaming NPC. For example, if you've killed a mechanic and the mechanic is killed either by you or by somebody else, you can either then improve your own mechanic skill up to a level that you can repair it yourself, or you can ask somebody else, or find a completely different way of them solving that problem. But we've always built things around, or things that you can always get around problems like that.
So you can kill NPCs with markers, but can they kill other?
Yeah, they will. Okay. Of course, we haven't set them to like hostile from the very beginning. It wouldn't make a lot of sense if you start the game and in the background everybody's killing each other because there's no game left. But of course, if they then meet and they don't like each other, they're going to kill each other. So that's really just a setting for the AI. There's also a lot of story in here, so we've got around 300,000 words of spoken dialogue in the game. So you're looking about a playing time between 60 and 100 hours, depending on how you play, whether you really just play the main story with a couple of side quests, or you really explore everything and play with several factions. There's a high replayability factor in here. Here you just saw the jetpack attack. For example, if you wander to the Dome City we saw before, if you're cleric, you just come to the gate, and because it's controlled by clerics, you say, hey buddy, come in. If you're a berserker, you have to do something to get into the city to convince him that you can that he can trust you. But if you're an outlaw, because clerics don't like outlaws, you really have a hard time getting in there. Maybe you even have to kill somebody to get in. So it really choosing a faction really makes a difference on how the game develops. Exploration is a big part in the game, but as you can see here, there's a mine. Exploring is important, but you always have to take care of where you go, what to do. We try to make not to have empty spaces, so everything you can find something everywhere, and that is then a part of that. Exploration is also important. As you maybe can see here, there were some numbers on the roof. We'll go up to see it again. There's some numbers, and when we go down, there's a radio station, an old radio station that's still operating, and there's a safe in there with a digital lock, and either you can get the number through exploring, maybe you find it somewhere, or somebody will tell it to you, or you can also use your, let's turn off that radio. You can use your hacking skill to get into the safe. So, like I said before, there's always several ways to actually achieve something. We also, here you have an audio log, so what we try to do is to give each location a certain history. So these audio logs will tell you what happened here before the meteor came. And because it's just playing in the background, you get a lot of information about the lore while playing the game. Here we've got some Alps, so they're the bad guys, they're the sci-fi guys, basically. From region-wise, we have, this is here Abyssal, so that's almost at the center of the continent you can replay. You also have Udan, that's where you start, that's more a fantasy environment, so lush forests and all of that. You have Igniban, that's where the meteor came down, so there's a lot of volcanic activity. And you've got Safeguard, that's where the Alps here live. That's back there if you go up in the snowy mountains, because ELEX is cold, and so everywhere with high concentration of ELEX, there's always going to be ice and snow. And so, but there's really a lot to explore here. Let's kill this guy here now. Yeah, done. You can also have companions, and those companions will have a relationship with you. So if you take them with you, they all have their worldview or their view on the world, and if you do something they like, then that relationship will improve. If you do something they don't like, they will say that up to a point where they will leave your group completely. You also have your home base, where you have your bed, and where also the companions will assemble. So we really want to make you feel home in this world. Okay, and now we've seen the sci-fi part, maybe a little bit more about, we also got some fantasy stuff here. This is a troll, but most of the monsters, all of the monsters in this world are mutated monsters, because if you consume ELEX and you've got a strong will, you develop all these magical powers. If you don't have a strong will, you just mutate. So most of the monsters we have in the game are just mutated animals or even people that couldn't take it. Here we have a flaming sword of the berserkers. They've got all the magic. but you need to be a member of the Berserker faction to actually get that. Yeah, that's it. It's been developed for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 4, and it's going to be released in 2017. Any quick questions?